The Pentagon says Israeli and Lebanese military officials have met in Washington as part of peace negotiations. But on the ground, Israel is broadening its invasion of southern Lebanon. The military's issued new evacuation orders, and despite the US-brokered ceasefire, more airstrikes have been reported. Large swathes of residential areas are in ruins, with more than 1 million people displaced. A significant number of Israeli troops has crossed the Litani River in Lebanon for the first time since the 2006 war with Hezbollah. Israel's also declared areas south of the Zahrani River an active combat zone, ordering people there to leave. The Israeli occupation now covers roughly 2,000 square kilometres of southern Lebanon. That's nearly a fifth of the country. At the same time, Hezbollah is firing back. Israeli media says more than 10 rockets were launched overnight from Lebanon towards Kiryat Shmona in northern Israel. Most were intercepted, but one rocket struck the city, causing damage to buildings. Obaida Hitto is live for us now in Tyre in southern Lebanon. Obaida, the attacks and the forced displacement orders continue. Where are people able to move to?
Well, the Israelis are telling people to go north of the Zahrani River. But even if they get north of the Zahrani River, there are very few options for these displaced people. Over 1 million Lebanese citizens have been displaced since March 2nd. There are 600 government-run shelters distributed throughout the country, in schools, in government buildings, various locations, but they're all overflowing with people operating at maximum capacity. So anyone else who's trying to find shelter, at least temporarily, is going to have to look for a relative to stay with, to rent a temporary home, stay in a hotel. But for the large majority of people, we're seeing them stay in public parks, in tents, in the capital Beirut. In many of the neighborhoods, there are hundreds of people grouped into small communities that are trying to meet their ends meet. The government has been overwhelmed by this huge humanitarian crisis, the largest mass displacement in a matter of just a couple months ever in the history of Lebanon. This is turning into a huge humanitarian crisis that's something that's unmanageable. The money that's been earmarked for responding to this humanitarian crisis is just above $300 million by the United Nations, but only a small portion of it has actually been funded. So it's going to be very difficult days ahead as Israel issues more forced evacuation orders for, so far this morning, 7 more towns in southern Lebanon.
Obaida, just to give this a bit of context, you mentioned more towns and the Zahrani River. The advance of Israeli troops now across the Litani River, how significant is that?
Yes, this is the river that has been the point of discussion since the start of this conflict. It's about 30 kilometers from the Israeli border, but now Israeli troops have crossed over. They've reached a town called Zotar al-Sharqiyya, just southeast of the city of Nabatia, the second largest populated center in the south, north of the Litani River, and they're making their way north. They've reached the edge of a town called Shukin, which was also issued a forced evacuation order this morning. People in the south are understanding that Israel wants as many of the civilians out of these areas so that their military can operate more easily. There has been these areas have been heavily bombarded, artillery shelling and airstrikes. On the eastern side of the city of Nabatia, Israel is also making a push north towards the town of Debin, trying to make another cross over the Litani River, where it actually turns west as it travels north and south through the western Bekaa Valley. It turns west there in Marja'yun towards the Mediterranean Sea, and Israeli troops are trying to make another push to the east of the city of Nabatia and try and encircle these areas, essentially cutting off the western Bekaa Valley, Hezbollah's second and third lines of defense from the rest of the country in the south. This is a huge tactical victory for the Israelis on the ground, but it's coming at a huge price for the Lebanese people who are affected by these mass evacuation orders and the demolition and destruction that's coming with it as Israeli troops try and push forward deeper into Lebanese territory.
Obaida Hitto joining us live from Tyre in southern Lebanon. Thank you.